And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at another game in what could be called the Mystery Rummy series. Now, this is not an official title in the Mystery Rummy series, it's one that came afterwards, but this one is called History's Mysteries. Follows the same basic set of rules as a regular Rummy game, plus a little bit of additional stuff, like the Mystery Rummy series, and it's based on mythological beings and mythological pseudoscience type of things. So why don't we take a look at what comes inside the box, how this game plays, and what my thoughts are on it. So aside from an instruction manual, History's Mysteries really only comes with one thing, and that is a deck of 90 cards. On the back here you can see the History channel, obviously a game supported by the History channel, and then each of the cards is going to look something like this. You'll see that this one is for Yeti, the abominable snowman, and he is going to be one of the 10 different suits in the game. So you'll see there's the Yeti, here we have Bigfoot, very similar, or we have a giant squid, and there's 10 of these, 9 cards each for 90 cards total. And as you can see, they're color-coded. These are going to be what you're trying to make sets of in the game. And on a player's turn, essentially, you're going to start with a hand of cards. These will be face down, there'll be one face up, like regular Rummy. So here we have the Lost City of Atlantis, and each player is going to have a hand of cards. And on their turn, they're going to have a choice of what to do. So let's say this is my hand. They may first draw one card. Now, they can either take the top card of the deck and add it to their hand, so simply just draw this card and add it to their hand, so I got Roswell, New Mexico. Or what they can do is they can take any one card from the discard pile. So let's say all of these were in the discard pile, but I really wanted Atlantis. I would need to pick up all of these cards, and then I would have to play the bottom card that I picked up. So I would have to play that Atlantis into play. Now, I can only do so if I have at least 3 of that card, or that type of card. So I'd need 3 Atlantis cards, so I can't do that. I wouldn't have been able to pick the pile up, but you get the idea there. After you've picked up cards, you may meld cards into play. And so, for example, I have 3 of the Bigfoot cards here. And if this is the first time that Bigfoot cards are being put into play, I would place them down into my play area with the fact side of the card face up. So, let's move down to my play area here. I'm going to place these into play with the fact side face up. And that's basically how turns are going to go. You'll note that I also happen to have 3 of the Loch Ness Monster, and if that was the first time the Loch Ness Monster was being played this round, they would also come into play face up if I decided to play them. At the end of a turn, I'm going to discard one card to the discard pile. So let's say I don't want to keep Chupacabra. He goes to the discard pile, and it's the next player's turn. Now, the trick to this game, unlike the other Mystery Rummy games, is not in special cards. The cards that I've showed you are the only types of cards that are in this deck. However, the trick comes in with laying off of other people's cards onto your tricks. So, for example, let's say that my opponent happened to draw into a Bigfoot card. So here we go, Bigfoot card. Now, traditional Rummy rules, he can play this off of my set onto his own table, own side of the table, and he would get points for this at the end of the round. Now, the trick here is, when he chooses to play this as a layoff, he can choose it to be either fact, and nothing would happen because the cards are already fact, or he can choose it to be fiction. If he chooses to lay it off as fiction on his side, he has the choice of turning one of my cards into fiction as well. And this is important for scoring, because at the end of the round you're going to look at each different color of meld and see how many fiction or fact cards there are of each type. If there are more fiction than fact, all of the facts will go away after initial scoring, and if there are more fact than fiction, all of the fiction will go away. So this is a way to try and earn yourself some more points by negating points from your opponent. This goes through until one player manages to void themselves of cards by discarding their last card into the discard pile. At that point, the round will end. And what you'll do is you'll count up how many cards you have in play. So let's say, for example, I were to have these 6 cards in play. I would get, it's 6 times 2 per card, so I would get 12 points. Now, I don't understand why it's 2 per card. It could just as easily be 1 per card. and it wouldn't make any sense or any difference, but it could just as easily be 1 per card and it wouldn't make any difference, but for some reason they've decided it's 2. The player who didn't go out is going to lose 2 points for every card they have in their hand. So if this player were not the player to go out, they would have 12 minus 2 is 10 points. After you've calculated initial points, you'll go through and you'll do the fact-fiction thing that I mentioned earlier. So in this case, if there were 2 fictions and 2 facts, fiction always wins out over fact. So all of these fact cards would go away. Now our player that had those 3 wouldn't get to count those 2 that they just lost again. But after all of the elimination is done, you go through and count how many cards you have remaining, and you get 2 points for each of those again. So they had 10 before because they had 1 card in their hand that they got to subtract, plus another 8 is 18 points for that round. Rounds will continue in this manner until one player has earned 100 points at the end of a round. At that point, whichever player has the higher total, assuming that both go over 100, is the winner. So I have to be honest with you, I really went into this game expecting it to be a total and utter flop, as from what I'd heard from some of my friends. Now, upon getting it and playing it, I really don't think this is a bad game. It's not your traditional Mystery Rummy in that it doesn't have any of the extra cards that have special effects or change the gameplay in any way, shape, or form from Rummy. The only real difference is timing and when to lay off your cards, saving up enough cards to lay off in order to change from fact to fiction so that maybe you'll earn a few more points over your opponent. It's not complicated, it's not hard, but there is definitely that timing aspect. Maybe it's better to occasionally throw a card that you want into the discard pile simply so that you can pick it up and play it later in order to earn more points than you would earn if you were to do it otherwise, or actually to deprive your opponent of points that they were to get anyway. So History's Mysteries is definitely not the same as the other Mystery Rummy games, but I really think it's a pretty decent, very simple card game that you may want to check out.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.